guys, welcome back to another episode of No Punts Allowed with Paige and Kramer. Kramer, please do the honors.
Hold on, struggling. I'm distracted.
You take.
Oh, did you hear a little, like the little pop? Cheers. Yeah. I don't have a koozie, so it's not.
So don't
it's not going to be a secret. I'm just going to go with it.
You're just going to go with it.
One of my favorite beers. One of my favorite beers. Maybe my all-time favorite.
Do you have a list of your favorite beers? Like, do you know them from the...
I was asked this. It's really hard because it kind of changes. Oh, yeah. This is...
Okay.
But I think overall, like pound for pound, probably my favorite beer. This one.
All right. We're almost into the off season, and so we'll get into more of the favorite beer list. Those things will come. We did have to take last week off. I unfortunately... tested positive for COVID and had some symptoms.
Protocols?
Went into protocols. I went into protocols. I did tweet an Adam Schefter tweet and put my name on it because I had to laugh because that's all you could do at this point. I do feel fine now. A little bit still fighting off the cough of it. So thank you for everyone who did reach out to me, though. That was very sweet of you to make sure I was good. I am all right. We're back in action. Luckily, there were a lot of sports going on. But right now, everybody seems to be dealing with COVID because there's a lot of cancellations. We just saw right before we started recording that UCLA is not playing. Sucks so bad. But also, I need to get a Kramer Christmas update before we start anything football related. How did it go?
Yes.
And also, did you keep up with all the how many beers? For those that are new here, I will say, Adam started this thing years ago about how many beers would it take to put things together. And I believe it started as like a Christmas thing where like you're putting things together, and I feel like I saw so many tweets and I was enjoying them. But how did the Kramer Christmas go? Did you get all the how many beers tweets settled and squared away?
All right, first off, I'm glad you're feeling better and okay, and we're getting most important things, so cheers to that.
Yes.
Cheers. Second, to that. If I'm looking over my shoulder now, I want to real quick here before I get into the Christmas, this is my setup here now. Don't mind all the gaming systems. Got a little Air Force Louisville game action going on, and degenerate style. I'm probably just going to do a little peek every once in a while.
Here and there. Hey, that's how we roll here.
That's how we roll. But Christmas, very good. It was really nice, crazy. Kids were nuts, but very happy. It was good to see people safely, we hope, although at this point, who knows, right?
Yes.
And but the how many beers stuff this year, I mean, legitimately, I started it a couple years ago. My daughter had gotten like a dollhouse, and it was kind of like, how many beers is this going to be to put this together? And then literally like over the last couple of years, I get these all the time. I probably get a dozen a week. Over the stretch of like 3 days, I probably got, it felt like hundreds. Who knows what it was of people that are putting together stuff or doing things. How many beers is this going to be to put it together? And I love it because it's the spirit of people and alcohol and just try. And some of the shit that people put together, like it's like 10:45 at night. And it's like, hey man, how many beers to get this basketball hoop like cemented in the ground and up and running before Christmas? It's like, buddy, you are fucked. But a lot of beers. So I love this time of year. I love it for the bowl season. I am that UCLA NC State game, like literally seconds before we're coming on. What do we got here? Okay, Air Force is moving. But seconds before we're coming on, and that's a bummer because I was really looking forward to that game. I liked NC State in that game a lot, and to cancel it this late, we'll talk a little bit about it, but like to cancel it like hours before, this is not the last one of these, unfortunately, and we've got some we're getting into like the meat of the bowl season. We're going to get more of these. The protocols suck. They're outdated. I really feel for the people. I really feel for the people that are working these bowls. I can't remember who I saw. Like these people put their whole damn year into these amazing events. I feel for everybody, you know. Yeah. But these people that work, that are behind the scenes, that you don't talk about, that are making sure that they're coordinated right and everything. That's got to be tough. So to lose these games again sucks.
Yeah, it's a full-time job. One of my best friends works for the Fiesta Bowl. And she has a job year round. This is a year round gig. Like, so to work all year and to have it kind of sort of messed up by all of this is frustrating. And like you said, the protocols were set up months ago, and things have certainly changed and changed quickly here in the United States, not just in college football, but in just America in general. But we are seeing some good bowl games. We're seeing some weird scenarios happening because there's a lot of players opting out. There are like people who can't play. There are coaching changes. I mean, this bowl season, more than I can remember, has been very strange. I said to you, we do have a bet going with whoever has the like most losses in terms of picks and pints during bowl season has to do a mayo bath. And I went 1 for 5 in the first week. I had Marshall +5 and was on my vacation and was literally staring at the TV, screaming at the television. And it just, the gambling aspect of this bowl season is next level because you just can't predict anything. If you have a crazy bet, my suggestion is parlays that are just like the craziest of scenarios because it feels like they're all really happening.
The only game I bet early was Utah, which we'll talk about, but I bet Utah 6.5 because Olave and Wilson, and I want to talk about opt-outs too, were a shoo-in to opt out. I thought like it wasn't going to happen. And you look at the trend where it's going. So betting bowl season before opt-outs and before COVID was difficult because motivation and I've actually really never been a good bowl season gambler because I feel like I know these teams and I watch them and I try to take like all this in-season intel that I have and incorporate it. Like I'll tell you right now, after this game, 2nd and goal, by the way, Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State should kick the living shit out of Texas Tech. You're listening to this, whenever you are, you'll have this outcome in hand and know if that's the case or not. Mike Leach wants to bash Texas Tech, just like braids it, just obliterate. He does. But getting the information now is so difficult. We had a game this morning in Auburn and Houston won. That line swung about 2 or 3 points like this morning or even more like towards Houston. And I didn't quite understand it. So I just kind of backed away. So if you gamble on this stuff, which we do, awesome. But it's the most challenging other than maybe like week 18 in the NFL now. Other than week 18 in the NFL, I think it's the hardest sports to gamble on, especially now with the COVID protocols and everything else. Information's hard to get. And opt-outs are certainly a big deal. So opt-out wise, though, I wanted to talk about this, opt-outs. So we have COVID, we have opt-outs, 2 very different things, obviously. Ohio State gets hit with 4 huge opt-outs. Line goes from 6.5, Utah to about 4.5. CJ Stroud is still there. They still have got some dudes. Is the opt-out, are all of these opt-outs you think going to push towards an expanded playoff? Because I think they will. Like, I think we're heading there anyways. I think the opt-outs are going to be, if you want to expand the playoff to maybe 12, and I've seen people talk 16 in the last couple of days, like get more teams involved, get more stars involved, that'll prevent the opt-out. I'm wondering if that's going to be what finally does it. But again, I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, because we've had realignment, which we know was what people were saying was going to like to make the playoff process a little bit slower because everyone was saying, okay, we're not going to expand. People are getting into Power 5 conferences. They're not going to have to worry about being a group of 5. They're getting themselves into the playoff. We got a group of 5 team in. Maybe we don't need to expand it. But I do think that is going to start to be pushing it towards, hey, this will help with some clarity that'll make, not to say like, again, even when these guys opt out, these games are exciting. It's still college football at its best. It's really, really fun to watch. But I do think it makes the stakes a little bit higher, and they're going to go, okay, if we're going to have guys that are opting out and draft stuff and everything else, like, it's going to be a lot easier if you have an expanded playoff. These games mean more, and they're risking their bodies and all of this stuff for other things. I also think with COVID, people are just like, it's not worth risking getting that, going through all of that, going to the game, doing things, and going into the draft process. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of shifting. We talked about this a little bit on our last episode with early National Signing Day. I think we're going to see a shift in a lot of the things that happen. So the early signing period is probably going to go away. The expansion of the playoff is going to be, is actually going to happen, and we're going to get more intense bowl games, and there's not going to be this weird limbo of a month. The coaching carousel is maybe like something that like, okay, yes, it's going to happen in December like it usually does, but not as much because some of these coaches are still going to have to coach their their playoff team as opposed to their bowl team, unless you're Brian Kelly and you don't want to. But I think there's just so much that's going to change. Like, I heard a broadcaster even say during one of the games, like, so much is shifting in this sport and so much is unknown. And it's so true, because it's like, it feels like just replicating what's going on in the world in general. Like, you just don't know, but you feel like we're moving into a direction that's going to completely shift how things were for years. And sort of create maybe a better college football platform for all of us, and maybe an easier way to gamble during the month of December, because is it hard.
And to be clear on the opt-outs, like, Garrett Wilson is like one of my the most exciting players in college football for Ohio State. Mm-hmm. He should opt out. Like, it's weird to be opting out of a Rose Bowl, right? The Rose Bowl has this
so weird
outside, like,
the granddaddy of them all.
It's a wonderful game, and it will still be wonderful. So I want to make it clear, I don't fault the players. And I saw some speculation that maybe these bowl games can say, hey, Garrett Wilson, if you play, we'll give you $50,000. Like, if the bowl games as part of NIL, they can start to get creative. Now, I don't know if these bowls have the financial means. A lot of them do not. The Rose Bowl probably would, to provide this for players, but they can start getting creative with it. I have no issues with players opting out, but you can do things to change it and to make the players want to stay. You don't have to. You could do all this out in the open. Like, if you're like a playoff game, we're talking about it, right? Sam Howell, we believe, is going to play. Matt Corral for Ole Miss, we believe, is going to play. Now, these are guys that, like, have unique situations, I think have unique bonds with their schools and their programs. Like, Matt Corral owes Lane Kiffin. Matt Corral, by the way, can also, like, throw his hat into the ring as a top 10 pick if he goes out against Baylor and is kick-ass. We'll talk about those games in a bit. So I think everybody's situation is different. It's probably different for a quarterback than it is a linebacker or a wide receiver. But I do think that if you look at the way the sport can be better, expanding the playoff, upping the stakes, getting somebody like, Pickett in, Kenny Pickett say, hey, I'm going to stay, or getting Kenneth Walker at Michigan State, right? Teams that could be potentially on the cusp. I think that would go a long way. And then they end their careers a little bit more naturally. But as it stands right now, you opt out. I hope you're getting good advice. That's my only thing on the opt-outs, because they're far ranging. I hope the advice that you're getting is sound. And if that's the case, go get that money.
Well, and these players usually get, like, advice from NFL scouts. They get advice from the school. They get advice from a lot of different people. Yes. So it is difficult to kind of figure out what is best for you. I used to really think that, like, NIL would not have an impact on, like, the way this sport is shaped and how it's, like, going. Like, yes, you could get the expansion of the playoff, but you're still going to have teams that need to be Alabama and Georgia and teams like that, like, okay, they're still going to lose them. They're still going to be the national champions. But I'm curious if you think that NIL will actually start to impact besides Alabama, are we going to see are we going to see a year like this year where we get Cincinnati and Michigan in a playoff where we did not think that was going to be the case at the start of the year? Do we start to see a shift in this because, like, the playing field has essentially been leveled, but it's almost like it's not going to have the opposite effect on Alabama. I think Alabama's the outlier, but I'm wondering if it has the opposite effect on, like, a Georgia, because, like, for example, like, they have great recruiting classes and they have the talent to win, but they haven't. And it's like, are other teams going to start to catch up to this because NIL is going to even this out, and there's going to be expanded playoff and opportunity. So again, you're going to get a chance to actually play and win. I don't know. It just seems like this whole thing is shifting. I mean, it's exciting, but I don't know if I didn't think that NIL would really impact the game that much, but now I'm sort of thinking that maybe it might, now that as we talk this through.
I think that NIL, at least right now, is going to have an impact, like, early on. Like Garrett Wilson or Kenny Pickett, or these guys are, like, not hanging around college football to make money because they know they can make a lot more of it in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But a team like Texas, like, who's handing out interesting NIL deals, I find fascinating, right? Like, whether it's, you get the quarterback, you have the lineman, resource-rich programs, Texas A&M, they're going to get creative with what they do. But will it change? Probably not. I mean, this stuff's been going on for a while. Deep pockets will prevail, and the deep pockets we kind of already know. But I am curious. to see how you're right. This is like a tipping point. All this stuff kind of happened in one off season, and throw in COVID, transfer portal, which is not sustainable.
The portal needs to be fixed. The coaching carousel issue needs to be fixed. That's been needed to be fixed for a while because the issue always was, coaches can leave and go and immediately coach, but players can't go and immediately, play at other schools or do whatever. It's not fair for coaches to have different rules than players. So, there's so much that is going to need to be addressed in the next couple of months with college football.
Well, and we've got our CFB resolutions that I want to talk about in a little bit shortly about things that we want. It's New Year's, all the things that you want to be fixed. I've got a couple clear ones that I want to tackle. But I also want to talk about this. Matt Ariza, punting god. Mm-hmm. Speaking of going to the NFL, now he played in the bowl game, is declaring early for the draft. We have a punter and a kicker that's leaving early. I am not a scout expert. I do want to do this story though, Paige, at some point. What is the value? So what do you do with a guy that can kick the ball 60 yards consistently? And I don't have the answer that other than we have a fucking punter declaring for the draft, and no one is questioning this. Everyone's awesome. And now the question turns
the iron's hot.
Yeah, and what do you do? What do you do with this if you're an NFL team? The guy kicks field goals. He's a good field goal kicker. And he's probably going to be the best punter in the NFL when he walks on. There's some good punters, but has a chance to be the best one. I'm just fascinated by all of this. It's been one of my favorite storylines of the years that a punter literally took over, and for some, not all, entered the Heisman conversation. For some, which I think is fantastic. So if you're an NFL team, realistically, where would you consider the moment that you would pull the trigger on Matt Ariza where you draft him?
That's hard.
Okay, I'll give you my answer.
If you're a team that's right where you feel comfortable, but also it'd have to be because obviously you draft based on need as well. But if you're a team that has, it also depends on the class that's coming with him too, because it's what do you get from this draft class that you can maybe wait till the next draft class or get in free agency?
I don't have NFL punting stats in front of me, but it reminds me a little bit, and the pick has worked out okay. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire went to the Chiefs, and it's a terrible comparison, running back punter, but you're a team that are it's the Patriots or the Chiefs or the Packers or a perennial, or the Bengals. You've got all of these cool pieces in place, and now you can say, you know what, late second round, fuck it, let's take a punter. Let's take this all-world guy because, we're not the Jets, my team, that, although they drafted a punter a couple of years ago, that, you've got the luxury to take that. And I'm curious if that's going to be the case.
So in your mind, if you have a solid offense and a good quarterback, that's where you would be the team to take it, not the opposite, having to use them more.
Well, that's a great point. But I think a team like the Jets or the Jaguars, who have so many holes, you could argue shit, that you have to start elsewhere. People
would be pissed. Yeah.
But if you're a really good team, not just with a great quarterback, but a team with a stable, the Chiefs right now, which we look at left for dead, not to turn this into an NFL pod, but the defense has played great. You've got Mahomes. Okay, now you're going to get this kick-ass punter that when you do need it, when in the rare instances you can do it. And maybe a field goal, if he's truly going to be a kicker, and you can lock up 2 roster spots with one player, I think that's incredibly valuable. I know we have time to talk about draft, but punters declaring, I could wax poetic for 2 fucking hours.
I'm glad you brought it up because it's a very interesting thing to look at. If I were everyone, I would just make sure that he doesn't end up on the Patriots. If I'm
be very annoying.
Yeah, that would be super annoying, but I also, because I feel like Bill would know the best option here. If I were to consult any coach on what to do with a punter in this situation, that would be the coach that I go for. I
will say his value on that team and on that season transcended normal punter. What he was able to do, and I don't know how exactly that'll translate to the NFL, but what he was able to do impacted the season. in a way that I can't really remember it. And that's, I'm excited. Again, we'll talk plenty about him as we get to draft, but one more mascot of the show, maybe Bo Nix. I love Bo Nix. I love watching Bo Nix play football. We did a story on like the best plays of the year, and somebody had suggested Bo Nix's touchdown pass against LSU, and I fell down like a Bo Nix wormhole.
I see it like in my brain happening.
So he's to Oregon. This is a defensive-minded staff they're putting together now with a creator on offense. And I'm excited about this pair. I think it's a fun pairing, actually. I think if Nix has gotten, he got better this year. He got good. He wasn't great. He got good. He eliminated some of the stupidity. Why are you laughing?
You talking yourself into this is so funny.
No, but I just like watching him play. And Oregon has a team with a pretty decent foundation still. I think it's a good spot for him. I really do. I think it's a good spot for him. This is an Auburn team that when he was healthy and cooking actually was like top 15 this year. And they just lost to goddamn Houston today. No offense, Houston. But I'm excited to see him healthy and hopefully with a just a functional program just to see what's left for him.
I like that you think that Oregon is a functional program.
Kind of.
I look, I think it's a great fit for him.
14-0 Air Force. 14-0 real quick. Sorry.
I think I took the over in this game, which is just, we need to talk about my over problem. But
you do have one, but so do I. So no, we don't.
Do.
We need to embrace it. We need to lean into it.
It is pretty bad. But I think it's just such a strange pick for me to go to from an SEC school. And I feel like he's been given his opportunity. I don't think he was in a bad situation with Gus. You know, I don't know. I don't see it working out as they become Pac-12 champs, all of those things. I don't think Oregon's in the conversation and running. I just don't see it happening. I think he's going to improve his draft stock by being in the Pac-12, playing against lesser opponents, and showing that he's semi-decent. I think it's definitely a draft move for him for sure. But I don't see it being a huge impact on the Pac-12 or anything. And maybe that's just my bias against Oregon and the fact that Bo Nix picked that school, but I don't see it. I mean, it's good for him, good fit for him, draft great, but no.
I would have loved to have seen him at Nebraska, truthfully. I would have loved just the general vibe and energy of him. I don't know if that would have meshed well, but it would have been great. Now, let's talk Bulls. Now, we don't know, by the time we say games that we're looking forward to, they're probably going to be canceled.
Be canceled, yes.
All right, so we lost UCLA today. I'm going down the list. We lost Boston College, East Carolina, which I was actually really looking forward to. But we have a really good, a really solid slate of games coming up. We'll get to New Year's Day. We'll get to semifinals. Are there games out there that you're really looking forward to? Before then, give a game or two out there. Cause I've got some, it's a little weird as we get into the playoffs and everything else, but is there a game before then that you're really looking forward to watching?
I mean, sadly, just all of them, because I feel it's going to be weird because if you look at, I was really looking forward to Pitt, Michigan State, but Kenny Pickett is not playing, but it's still going to be a fun game to watch because you don't know what is actually going to happen. The fact that people are opting out is crazy. Obviously, I'm looking forward to South Carolina, North Carolina. I will say I did see, because that's obviously the Mayo Bowl, I did see today that Bob Stoops said he would be totally okay with being doused in tequila.
Be fantastic.
Which I think is because what's the administration going to do? They give 0 Fs at Oklahoma right now. I actually think that's hilarious. That would be so good for college football because that's just such a on brand thing that would be frowned upon publicly, but would be awesome if he was doused in tequila. Obviously there's gonna be underage kids there, but whatever. He's of age. Let's douse him in tequila. That is. Let's start that. Let's start the getting doused in things that are probably frowned upon, but let's just do it.
That's how you're going to make bowl season fun, though. Like, dumping mayo on coaches is the way to do it. Like, the fact that Bob Stoops is coaching in this game, and I hope this game is played, by the way, because I know Oregon has some COVID issues and numbers issues and everything else. I actually think the slate tomorrow, we lost SMU Virginia, which is kind of a bummer because that would have been fun. I think the slate tomorrow I'm really looking forward to Clemson, Iowa State.
Yes, the Cheez-It
Breezy
Bowl.
Hall. Yeah, Hall
Remember
is not
I dubbed
playing.
it the I was supposed to be good bowl?
Mm-hmm.
We really thought that they were going to be good. Also, please tell me.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, please tell me you saw the jumpsuits that the coaches were wearing today.
Yeah, I think the best comparison, because I'm a kid.
I know exactly where you're going with this. I love it.
Yeah, Despicable Me. I mean, what is it? Vortex or yeah. So that was amazing. But I kind of like how
this picture of Dabo Swinney, please go look at this picture of him in the orange jumpsuit.
I just kind of appreciate how few fucks Dabo gives about this stuff. Like, he's just there. They hand him this stuff, and he's probably like, all right, he just, like, there's something about that. I know people's Dabo opinions are a little bit, like, mixed, polarizing these days for reasons I think that are fair. But his ability to show up and look like a traffic cone and not give any shits about it
and just be like happy about
excellent.
It. Like, you know what? He definitely, I had him very high on a pedestal, and then he dropped really low for me, and then now he's starting to work his way back up. Because, like you said, he doesn't give flying you know what. So that just, like, he's just, everything's positive, everything's good. And in light of the fact that, like, everything is crumbling actually around him in terms of Clemson in that program and needing to, like, fill, like, coordinator positions and make sure teams win and keep, up with the transportal recruit, do all those things. He's keeping a positive attitude. So, I mean, that's good. Cool, calm, and collected.
He that part of Dabo is good. You mentioned Pitt, Michigan State. I think Tennessee, Purdue, it could be very fun. And you mentioned the Mayo Bowl. Like, let's talk Mayo Bowl. Sam Howell has been really fun to watch. Really, really fun to watch. So I'm excited to see what we get from Sam Howell in what will probably be his last game, I'm assuming. Has he actually declared yet? I can't remember.
I don't think so. He's graduated. I
yes,
see
he should be
graduation
gone.
photos.
That dude is tough as shit. And the fact that he's playing, again, if you're not playing, that's fine. But the fact that he's playing in this game, also South Carolina is a really cool story, like Beamer and everything else. So the Mayo Bowl, beyond like somebody's getting mayo on their head, watching Mac Brown get dumped with mayo is could be amazing.
I would take either coach. I honestly, I
that's awesome, by the way, for these guys. Like to just for charity, like one of us is going to have to do mayo. Like, this is actually happening.
Dukes actually sent me a DM, and we are going to use Dukes too because they did inspire us. I feel like it's only right to use Dukes.
Is this a national championship thing, by the way? Should we talk about that? That we're national championship bound, and that we're going to go.
See each other. We should talk about that.
Just film the mayo. Like, yes, like we are going. It's an odd transition before our resolutions, but like shit's moving fast. So we're going to the national championship. We have to figure out how we're going to do content there. But we'll do a pod there or something, right?
We'll figure
that out.
We'll do a pod there.
It'll probably
for sure.
be, pulled together at the last minute. There will be alcohol involved. But we'll get it done. And we'll be at and I'm real quick on this. So it's in Indianapolis, which is an amazing city. It's going to be cold as shit. Cold as shit. We should make reservations at St. Elmo's, which is a really good steakhouse right across the street from Lucas Oil. Cocktail, shrimp cocktail fan, by the way? Are you? Who doesn't like shrimp?
Shrimp is my favorite food.
Okay.
I can't believe we haven't had this discussion. Shrimp is legitimately my favorite food.
So we should go to St. Elmo's, but the cocktail sauce is ungodly hot. It's wonderful. If you have, you'll be getting, hopefully, do you have your sense of smell and taste, by the way?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, good. So if you have any lingering sinus issues, this will clear that right up. This is like a sinus. Oh, yeah. It is so hot and delightful. St. Elmo's cocktail sauce. Like, we order it by the bottle here and drink it. Okay. And not drink it because that would be terrible. But St. Elmo's National Championship, that's happening. And I don't know. We have to. Sorry. See, I generated your first cough. That was my bad. You've held it together pretty well.
I did. We made it. I don't even know how long, but that was. We almost made it. No, I'm looking forward to it. I've never been. But it's also the like positive of. I shouldn't use positive. The exciting part of what's to come for once.
It's a strange word these days.
Oh yeah, it's a tough word. But I mean, we should probably get to resolutions because we are going to have New Year's before then. CFB resolutions. What do we need to resolve in the world of college football?
Okay, I'll start. We're going to go one for one. Here, I'll go first. Targeting. Now, we don't need to get rid of the targeting penalty. Yes, we don't need to get rid of it. I have been saying this for goddamn 10 years. I'm going to go back 10 years ago where Pat Fitzgerald at Big Ten Media Days, there was a small group of people, and he said, let's do yellow cards, let's do red cards, like they do in soccer, like they do in basketball. Flagrant 1, flagrant 2, yellow card, red card. If you hate soccer, well, whatever. However you want to clarify it. We do this for punting, Paige. We have a running into the kicker and a roughing the kicker. We have more nuance in punting than collisions on the field. So I've talked to people about this. I know targeting is here to stay, and it likely is going to get more and more strict. Like they are getting a lot of the quote unquote kill shots out of the game, which I think is good. Like the way it's officiating, what you need to give these officials chances to do is some nuance. And a lot of the targeting calls are incidental. Is it targeting? Is it not? And you can have a targeting 1 and a targeting 2. Targeting 2, blatant head to head. Keep it an ejection. Keep it exactly. Targeting 2 is basically targeting right now. Targeting 1, you could do no ejection, first of all, which I think is the most important thing. And you can make it a 5-yard penalty or a 10-yard penalty. You could still penalize it. You can make it a 15-yard penalty if you want. And then you could also maybe accumulate these. Like, hey, if you get enough targeting 1s, if you get 2 in 2 games, then we have an ejection, right? Or you have to sit out a game or a half. This targeting itself has done a lot of good for the sport. It's a really difficult thing to call. We need to give the people that make these calls a little bit more leeway to make the right call. It's by far the biggest issue I have with football right now.
No, it's definitely difficult. And I think, I will say that it is hard to determine intent because I think even going back to like the Clemson hit on Justin Fields, I remember that targeting review specifically from the playoff last year and it being like that intended to hurt. But people were like, look, this is football, whatever. So I think the intent part is going to be the hard part. And that's why we haven't given it a 1A and 1B type of deal. But it does need to change because, and I also think like ejecting guys from their bowl games, like you had an Auburn player today. Like why do I remember all these Ohio State games? I remember one of the Bosa brothers got ejected from their bowl game, and that was like his last game playing for Ohio State. I can't remember if it was Nick or Joey, but like there just has to be some form of like you said, there has to be nuance to it. There has to be something.
It doesn't have to be the harshest penalty. Like you're getting hits out of the game. Targeting, through all of its weirdness and its polarizing, has been largely good for football, but it's really difficult to officiate. And most of these, frankly, should not be ejections. Some of them you can. Some of them are like, holy shit, that's bad. All right, whatever. Do as you please. But I think there's just nuance there. So for me, that's my biggest one. What about you?
Here's the thing. Mine's kind of like a duo because they go hand in hand. I think there needs, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, I think there needs to be something done about the coaching carousel and the transfer portal madness that happens after championship weekend. I think that there's so many rules on what players can and cannot do, and there's just coaches are allowed to go and do what they please, and I honestly think that that's how it should be for players as well. Like if I don't know that, I'm not saying get rid of the sit out rule and you can transfer one time without punishment or things like that, but I don't know. I think there needs to be a more, like you said, there needs to be a little bit more to it. There needs to be levels of like, okay, like there's tampering in the NBA and things like that. Like I do think that there needs to be some form of repercussion for guys recruiting for one school and then like dipping, and these guys are stuck in these things. And here's the thing, there's so many recruits. I think this kind of segues into your next one. There's so many recruits that have to like figure out what's going on. And right now, to be honest, it's hard to know who's going where, who's transferring where, who's going to be able to play when, who's eligible for what, because everybody got an extra year. It's just straight up madness. And I think there needs to be some form of way to like organize all of this, because between coaching and the transfer portal, like it's just too much. Like it's almost like not fun, because it's like, okay, well, we might as well just wait this out. Like, it's hard to create content around. It's hard to get excited for people signing places, like, because you just know that in like a couple months, like there could be one big shift and that changes something for different individuals. And this is like an impact on like, not even just like 5 stars and 4 stars, obviously totally different story, but like the guys that are getting recruited later and are waiting for roster spots, like that's tough to me. Is like, that's the part where it's like kind of confusing. So I would say get a handle on the transfer portal and figure out the coaching situation where there are actual rules for what goes on, or just let it be fair on both ends. Really, it's just my opinion.
Roster management is a mess, and I think it needs to happen the way kind of the NFL sequences its offseason, which is coaching changes, free agency, draft. Right? College football almost needs to stage this. Coaching changes, transfer portal, recruiting. Because I think, like, look at what Alabama has done, by the way, in transfer portals this year. They added Rick's an elite cornerback. Like, the best corner. I mean, that dude's awesome. That guy for them is going to be a star. And oh, by the way, one of the best running backs in the country, too, at a position that they're strangely sort of down in by Alabama standards. So they went in, they got 2 guys for them. By Alabama standards. They still have some great backs. But so they added 2 players that were, if they're healthy, they're like All-American players. Like All-American type players. And so I think what you need to do, national signing, the core of this is National Signing Day.
Yes.
Your points are valid. I don't know how you regulate the transfer portal better, other than kids are going to figure it out, and these things will kind of, I think it will.
There needs to be a way to be able to see it for everybody.
Yes.
Because right now you can't see it.
Like,
unless you have access to it, you cannot see it, and you have to look on. That's how people get like sources, because they have guys that work for staffs and they tell them who's in the portal, or guys say, hey, I'm in the portal or whatever. But like, there needs to be a way that everybody can look at it so we can figure it out. There's no more like put your name in and maybe be anonymous and see who reaches out. There needs to be like a, hey, this is what we're doing.
National Signing Day, you either have to move it way up into like August, or you have to put it back into February. I miss National Signing Day just from a sheer.
I mean, there still is one in February, but it's not like no one cares.
But it's I honestly,
I would push it till after high school is over. Like, I would make it the summer. Because if you're going to go early, you're already going to do that. So my thing would be make it the summertime.
But because then you changes.
Know where.
But so much changes. Coaches, assistant coaches, like that's the part of it that's hard too. I mean, I think that here's where it is right now just ain't working, and I think that's going to be changed. And the sport is suffering. Coaching, I mean, all of this kind of hinges on the recruiting class like being what it is and coming in at the time that it does. Coaches don't like it, and the players can still enroll early. That's what we did before the early signing period. If you're set on Alabama or Clemson, you can still do that. Like that's the part that it was unnecessary to have signing day in late December, in my opinion.
We got greedy. We wanted this excitement and stuff to be around college football during a time where maybe the bowl games are, I think bowl season was getting to be a little like exhausting because people were so worried about opt-outs, and then there's no playoff ramifications for certain people. So I think now that we're getting into expansion and things like that, there's no reason to clutter up the month of December, and like, let's make the most out of like the actual product we have, as opposed to trying to make the most off of where kids are going and wait until, the beginning of the year, wait until the dust settles on coaching carousel. Like, I think that's the biggest thing too, is like, you're going to have people leave. Even if like a coach is hired, you don't know who's leaving or who's staying or what's happening. So yeah, I definitely think there needs to be an adjustment with all of that. Is just, but you're right. It hinges on National Signing Day. The early National Signing Day needs to go away.
Real quick, last one. Go back to the old overtime. It was fine. You broke it.
Please
just undo it and fix it. So,
and also the reason they fixed it was because they didn't want there to be like a 7 overtime game like the LSU Texas A&M one, and Illinois and Penn State beat that one and set the record
9
for
OTs.
it. 9 OTs
By the
this
way,
time, 7 for LSU and Texas A&M.
Air Force update, it's 14-7. Good for your over if you have the over. Over is what we got. We got 7 minutes left in the quarter. We got 2nd and 8. We have a goddamn false start, it looks like.
Yeah, I took.
Not liking
No,
that at
actually,
all.
I switched. I think I switched it to the under last minute.
I don't know.
So
it's
55
what was
and a
the
half.
total in this game?
55.
Yeah, it's kind of like right. That's kind of like trending. I mean, that's.
I swear to God, if I took the under and it hit the over hits, I'm going to be so mad.
Oh,
Overs for life.
Yeah, that's like when you're a gambler trying to change your ways. All right, before we talk semifinals, because this is it. This is this week. Let's talk New Year's Day bowls. Okay. Here's our games on New Year's Day. We have Arkansas, Penn State. Really excited about that. We have Oklahoma State, Notre Dame. We have Kentucky, Iowa. And we have Utah, Ohio State. We have Baylor, Ole Miss. So of those games, which one excites you most?
I kind of like Arkansas, Penn State. Is that weird?
No. I wrote about it. I'm excited about that game. Like a lot. Like
I feel like
it's a fun game. The spread now in that game, by the way, it's like right. I mean, it's sort of pick 'em. I'm on Vegas Insider. It's like Arkansas -1, Penn State -1. It's right about pick 'em.
That's a fun game.
It is a fun game.
Do you think Kentucky Iowa is going to be obnoxious? Do you think it's going to be a blowout?
Oh, hold on.
What's happening?
Go.
No.
Touchdown, Air Force. Caught live. I should have done some commentary. He jukes.
Yeah.
Yes, Kentucky Iowa is going to be a horrible game, Paige. It's
Wait,
going to be terrible.
What just happened in that game?
Air Force just scored like a 70-yard passing touchdown. Like, yeah,
oh my God, the over is going to hit, and I'm going to be so mad.
21 or 20 pending extra point. You can't count on that.
I need your Iowa take. I need your Iowa Kentucky take.
So
it's going to be ugly.
Yeah, I think that's going to go under. Like both those defenses are good. Goodson opted out for Iowa, which was a bit of a surprise at running back. That was their most explosive player. One of the most explosive running backs they've had in a long time. Sounds like Petrus has been taking reps. I just think it's going to be a low scoring game. Under 4, like that game to me should be in the 30s. Unless Kentucky is going to be more explosive than they've been. I'm excited for it. These are, Stoops has got connections to Iowa as well. So it's kind of an interesting game. I don't think it's going to be a very watchable game. But I am going to bet the under in that game. Yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. Now I will say I am really excited about the Rose Bowl. I'm always excited about the Rose Bowl. I think we've talked about this in terms of HD experiences on my TVs. Rose Bowl Masters are my favorites every year. It's just the scenes, the vibe, just everything about it. Now, Ohio State loses Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. They lose their left tackle, and they lose a meaningful defensive tackle. Huge losses. So the line has swung a bit. I don't think Ohio State is going to care about this game. I know that's weird to say about the Rose Bowl, and I think Stroud is still good. No, by the way, they still have a receiver that went over 1,000 yards to throw to, and a young running back that's awesome. I think Utah, after watching the Michigan game, they're going to say, Michigan punched them in the mouth long enough, and they could not eventually punch back. Like, that was the vibe of Michigan. And I think Utah is Michigan light. I think they can do that. They have a running back that scored 20 touchdowns this year, Paige. Like, their brand of football right now, and they are going to give a shit. I know that Utah's going to be up for this game. So
they absolutely give a shit. This is their national championship. This is your opportunity to go out. First of all, because everyone mocked them with the Oregon situation. It was like that was a fluke. They came out, showed out again. This is your chance to really make your mark and win in your first Rose Bowl, which is huge. So I do think that Utah definitely has, is going to care about this more, but I still think that Ohio State is pretty stacked in terms of next man up. So I'm not saying that this is going to be a blowout, but I think it's going to be a good game. I think it's going to be quality football for us to watch.
And then the nightcap is Baylor Ole Miss, which is fun as hell too. Matt Corral, we believe is going to play. And the other thing about Corral in this game, Paige, like I felt like the last third of the year, really after the Tennessee game, he was playing hurt. I mean, he got himself hurt in that game.
Yeah.
Ran the ball a ton. You know, I think him healthy and wanting to put on a show against this defense, I like Ole Miss a lot in this game. I thought Oklahoma State had some really dumb shit turnovers. We probably should talk about that game too. But I thought Oklahoma State had some terrible turnovers. Sanders had some awful throws against Baylor. Like, credit to Baylor for doing it. Matt Corral, I think, is on another level. Like, I think when this draft process like finishes off and he's able to work out and people are like, oh my God, this dude's huge and he's got a cannon and he can run. It wouldn't shock me if that's the guy. By the end of this night, it wouldn't shock me if all of a sudden we're talking about, you know, whether it's the Lions or the Jaguars obviously aren't going to draft a quarterback, but they may trade. That's the guy that I think is the most interesting. And I love the fact that I think he's playing, although he's probably going to opt out by the time people listen to this.
Yeah, right? Because that's just the nature of how it goes. I honestly, can we talk about the contrast of coaches here? Like, yes. I don't know. like the polar opposite.
That's actually amazing. Yeah.
Which is like, you have Lane Kiffin, who is this like personality in himself who's changed so much over the years. He does still have that very dry sense of humor, but he still loves to make jokes and have fun. And then you've got Aranda, who is just like all business, no nonsense, and is just
Zen-like.
Yes, just like doesn't get they score and he's like, cool. Like the biggest play was by an inch. From the Big 12. Yes.
And him to not react that's like one of the more surreal scenes of the season.
And then you have like Kiffin who's like chucking things in the air all season and like loves it. Like, yeah, I think that's going to be actually a really fun game, including the fact that like one, you have an explosive offense versus like a very defensive minded team, which is strange to say about a Big 12 team, but that's just the nature of how it's sort of adjusted. And Baylor and TCU were always those guys for the Big 12, but yeah, it's definitely going to be a very fascinating game to say the least.
All right, we both have a pick for the OK State Notre Dame game in Picks and Pints. So we'll move on. And we both, at least I have picks for both playoff games, and so do you.
Yes.
So how do we bridge? Why don't we start Picks and Pints with an extended breakdown of the semifinals, since we both have it. Okay. Now, here it is. This is King Sue. I've probably done this before. I know I've done Pseudo Sue. Unbelievable. Toppling Goliath is one of my favorite breweries. Iowa, of course. Iowa brewery, but now it's made its way into the Midwest all over the place. Just phenomenal beer.
Yeah, I didn't have alcohol before this, but I did have cough syrup, so I had Robitussin. So
there you go. Cough
you know
syrup.
What?
That'll get the job done, yeah.
That'll get the job done. We've been good.
It's about the same. Now, let's talk. Where do you want to start? Alabama?
Yes.
Okay. 13.5. I want to make sure I get the updated total. I think it's 58, if I'm not mistaken. Where are you? This is the game that I'm covering, by the way. 57, so it's come down a little bit. Come down a point. So, Cincinnati has some dudes. Their corners, Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant, are NFL players. Their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, NFL player. Their running back, who started at Alabama, and by the way, had a great quote saying, hey, thank you, Nick Saban, but I'm a Cincinnati Bearcat now, was for Jerome Ford. Great player. They have players that would star and thrive at Alabama. Paige, my concern for this game, though, is everywhere else and the depth chart. And I think the thing I struggle with, because I've gone back and forth on this, Alabama largely, I don't want to say looked like shit. They didn't look like shit. They looked like shit against Auburn. They didn't play great against LSU. They struggled with Arkansas. They lost to Texas A&M. Georgia happened, and it's like the offensive line was perfect again, which has not been great. And obviously Bryce Young was superb. So what I struggle with this game is which version of Alabama are we going to see? And also, I think the big thing, I'm kind of playing my own devil's advocate because I like Alabama in this game. But also, the loss of Mechie. I think is a big deal at wide receiver. I mean, that you obviously have a great number one that they have, but who's going to step up? And that would be, again, I like Alabama minus 13.5, but I think there are some legit questions for Alabama as it pertains to this game.
I think Alabama they've been saying it, we've been underdogs this whole season. Cincinnati's a great team. If they truly believe it, then they'll be fine. When they came in against Georgia, it was like, you guys have talked your shit. We heard you. We're going to remind everybody that this is what we are. If Alabama was playing a Michigan or a Georgia, I think it would be no question this is going to be a punch in the mouth, and that's just how it's going to go for this semi. I won't say that for the national championship, but I think if they are able to get themselves in a mentality that they were in when they played Georgia, then this is going to be an absolute blowout for Cincinnati. Like you said, they do have guys, but again, you're forgetting there's still Nick Saban, and you have a Heisman quarterback that also understands the gravity of making poor decisions against this Cincinnati defense. So I wish I could say that I would, and I'm you know this, I'm never going to bet against Alabama, so I'm taking Alabama minus 13.5, but it's just going to be what the mentality. I mean, we'll know within the first 5 minutes of that game. We're going to know what version of Alabama is going to be showing up, and if they've really worked themselves up to look at Cincinnati as a serious competitor.
It's interesting too, because you look at Cincinnati's season. If Mississippi State were playing Cincinnati right now, I'd love to ask a bookmaker this, and of course it depends on what Mississippi State does tonight. I think that game would be close to pick 'em. I don't mean to knock Cincinnati in this way. It's just what like the most fun outcome of this season is Cincinnati winning in terms of chaos, them conquering the sport. In terms of content, that would be the most like memorable, and it'd be like, oh my God. So part of me is saying, hey, if Cincinnati does a scare, they put a scare into Georgia in the bowl game last year, like they've earned their spot.
Yeah.
But I just think that Bryce Young, assuming he didn't do the whole Heisman tour for, 3 weeks and, there's all these distractions. Plus you have COVID in this page too, which is hard because the practices are closed. Kind of glad I'm not there, if I'm being quite honest. It feels good to not be covering like a bullshit media. I'm good for my house for this one. But I just think Alabama is too much. So we are both on Alabama here.
Yep.
By the way. Oh yeah.
Yes, we are.
Actually, I don't even need to ask that. Okay.
Yeah,
Michigan.
Right? I'm never
Michigan, Georgia. Yeah, I know. I Georgia, Michigan, Georgia. The line in this one is 7.5. Let me get the updated total because there's some movement here.
I'm so excited for this game. I am too. If this disappoints, I'm going to be pissed.
45 and a half. So I went first. What are your thoughts on this game?
Okay. I think that there is potential. Like, I think Michigan is fully prepared for this Georgia team. I understand they're good, but that offense, again, we've said this. If Michigan goes out and like actually scores some points and gets their run game going, they're going to be fine. I don't know that it's going to be as easy as it was against like an Ohio State or against Iowa, but I like Michigan in this game. Like, if I honestly might put money on Michigan money line. Like, that's how confident I am, and so biased that Georgia is going to choke this year away. I think it's hard to come back and have that lull and not be able. I don't know what's going on in the Air Force game.
It's 21-14 now. The under's looking rough right now. Sorry.
I'm going to be doused in mayo. We're doing that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, 2nd and 15. God damn it, Air Force. Let's go. So Michigan has the best player in this game, which is kind of funny when you think about how many great players Georgia has. I said it like in writing about this game and talking about it. Like, I don't know how you quantify momentum, but I do know this. But Michigan just slayed the dragon.
Yes.
Like, if Michigan season ends, they're good. I think there's like a weird house money feel to all.
They have nothing to lose. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. They have literally nothing to lose.
Harbaugh did it. Like, their season is like going to be one of the more, and that's a weird thing to say.
Yes.
When you're 2 games away, but it's also super dangerous. So you have maybe the number 1 pick in the draft. You have an offense that Blake Corum, their running back, is going to get back healthy. And look, they have some great running backs. That dude's awesome. So I think, and I really like McNamara. Now, I have Georgia future tickets. I had them 5-1, 6-1 to win the title. So I'm kind of torn on this, but I'm with you on Michigan. I like Michigan plus 7.5. Like the fact that you're getting that hook, I think they're going to be up for this game. I really do.
They are going to be up for it. The fact that they're taking, here's the thing, they didn't have to take major risks against Ohio State because they were up. But I think the fact that, like, one of the knocks on Harbaugh, and we've talked about that, is that he's always plays it safe, and that sort of costs them some close games. And I think in this situation, like you said, they're playing with house money. I think they have a guy, an offensive coordinator that's going to make the calls to go for it and to do things. And I don't know that Georgia is in a situation to do that. Georgia's not in a situation to do that. They have not had to chase. They haven't had to figure it out. And they were absolutely exposed when it came to the Alabama game. So I don't know.
Josh Gaddis, by the way, the fact that they keep him around for another year, we think, huge deal for Michigan.
Yeah.
Because there was rumors that he would get the Virginia job. They took some chances against Ohio State.
Yeah,
the play calling was brilliant.
Yes, the play calling was. And it was perfectly executed. The end of the game, running the ball. Like, it was everything that you like learn as a coach in terms of like, this is how you do it when this is the score. This is how you do it when this is what's happening. Like, it was chef's kiss. I loved it. And that's what Michigan was missing. And I'm super excited to watch them sort of expose Georgia again. Because I'm sorry if you're a Georgia fan listening to this podcast. I'm sorry.
Well,
maybe they'll prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, Georgia. I am begging you to prove me wrong.
I will say, Saban versus Harbaugh would be kind of delightful. Like, Saban versus Harbaugh, and if Michigan wins this game, you know, I'm a Jim Harbaugh apologist. We know this by now on this pod.
Yes.
But, like, if he wins this game, they cut his fucking pay and, like, basically gave him this shit contract. And Michigan State just gave Mel Tucker $100 million. Pay the man. The guy's donating all of his bonosis to, like, people at the
staff.
Like, Jim Harbaugh now. What are you going to do? Like, we wanted him fired. I thought he had to go, to be honest. Like, and I've backed him. I think Harbaugh has been criticized in a way that we really don't normally criticize coaches. I'm excited to see now what Michigan does, because they're going to be good, Paige. They're going to be good next year. McNamara should be back. They're going to lose Hutchinson. They're going to lose both their ends, who are great, but they've developed great. That offense is going to get better. They have a 5-star QB in McCarthy, actually, who I'm really interested to see how they use in this game, because he's been their running quarterback. So they kind of blatantly put him in games where it's like read option and handoff and different things. So I am super pumped for this game. I'm actually happy I'm not covering this game, because it's New Year's Eve and I want to get drunk and I want to watch it. And I'm going to get drunk and watch it, of course, after I file a column.
So...
Well, you can get drunk and kind of ish. Like, not drunk, but buzzed watching and keep tabs on all your little, the writers that make sure we don't screw you up. But,
my little writers.
Yes, the minions, if you will.
My minions, which I'm very excited, though, just to tell you, to see all of my minions in Indianapolis.
Yes.
And it's going to be a very exciting thing. All right, let's get to our other picks, though.
Hold on, real quick. 4th and 6. Air Force drops back. Throws it, got it. All right. Gave everybody a little, for people just listening, I turned the old computer here to a bit. So yes, let's get to other picks. Sorry, I can't help the degenerate in me. I mentioned it earlier. I'm going Kentucky, Iowa, under 44. If you're going to bet or watch this game, you probably need to bet this game. Like, that's just the reality of this game.
Honestly, I looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm just going to stay away.
Yes. I'll rip through mine. So we did Alabama, we did Michigan. I like Arkansas -1 versus Penn State. I think Penn State had a couple of big opt-outs. I liked Arkansas before then. Actually, not only big opt-outs, but like best offensive and defensive player for Penn State are out in this game. Both these teams are game. Both of them are seasoned. They've had brutal schedules. I like watching Arkansas play, and I think they're a bit more balanced. I think the Hogs win that game.
both teams have the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows this year. Like,
seriously,
man.
Started off unbeaten and then lost a shit ton of games when the schedule got hard. That's absolutely it.
Did you run through all of yours?
Yes, I got one more, and I think we both have this one. Oklahoma State plus 2.5, depending on where you look, versus Notre Dame. I again fell apart for OK State in the Big 12 championship. I still think that's a pretty good team as long as they don't throw the ball to the other team. So that's mine.
Yeah, I am taking OK State as well. I have Michigan State -3, so I'm still holding on to that. Despite all of the things. And then I'm also taking UNC -9 versus South Carolina, which is sad, I know, in the Mayo Bowl. But I had to bet the Mayo Bowl. You have to. And also...
I like UNC in that game as well.
Yeah, because, like, despite the momentum shift, because, like, UNC was looking like it was going to be actually a really great team until they lost their first game of the season this year. But I do think South Carolina is on a good trajectory. I just don't think the impact happens right this moment. The momentum is there. It's there. It's going to get there, but it's not this year. So UNC is gonna win that one for me. And then, let's see, yeah, we have the same on... Wow, we have the same on both playoff games, semis, and the
what
OK
could
State
go wrong?
one. What could possibly... when you and I bet the same is when things go wrong, so I'm a little nervous.
True.
But I don't think that we end up in a bad situation with all of this, so...
All right, so next week, we will likely do a midweek pod. And then we have to figure out what we're doing for national championship, content-wise. Being indie, we got to sort that out through the details.
We will be better about tweeting our schedule, and we will let you guys know what we are doing in terms of national championship content. But we will be together, which is very exciting, and
be fun.
Well, oh man, these semis, these New Year's games are going to be good. Hopefully we get most of them and don't get too many cancellations, but we appreciate you guys bearing with us also. But we are going to let Adam go and finish this game so he can watch his... How
bad has it been? I mean, the video must be egregious. It's, by the way, it's first and goal, second and goal from like the 1-inch line for Air Force.
I just love that we're getting this on camera because... that I don't know if you saw, but somebody recorded me watching the Marshall game, and I was like, honestly, I should record myself more watching these sporting events because I'm just an absolute buffoon. Like, I just care so deeply about stuff that does not matter. But this sport, it just makes you, it turns you, this is why we do the podcast together, because we feel the same way about it.
And gambling, gambling very sadly.
That does matter. Money does matter in that sense.
Yes, by the time people listen to this game will have been decided, but I've wanted Air Force for a while. So we'll see what happens. So yes, time to go snowblow my driveway and watch bowl games. Hopefully as many as we possibly can. So with that, for Paige, I am Adam. We will talk to you guys likely multiple times next week. Have a wonderful, safe new year. Enjoy the games.